Hands, all of you who raised your hands who are within the target population, I would like to have an intimate conversation with you. And what I mean by that is that you need to be in these rows up front. Everybody who raised your hand needs to be in these rows. We got plenty of space. You don't have to move, but we have plenty of space for our young people to join you. So all of you who raised your hand, come join us up in the front. So I'll be speaking directly to you, and the public speaker, the speakers will speak to those who are beyond the age range. How is that?
And then after that, we will have a section for you to ask questions, both young and older youth, to, questions about that or anything related to the young people, okay? Good.
All right. All right, so to our young people, there are 4 characteristics of young people that we want to talk about within the next few minutes, and then give you time to have conversation with us, because the pastor indicated that really what his intent was that we have a rap session with you, our young people. And this presentation that we are making is just to stimulate the conversation between you and us, all right? So there are 4 things about you that we want to share. And
the first is this. It's not really the first. What does it say up there? You are amazing.
That's the truth.
Look
You as young people are always amazing. Even though your faces right now, I'm looking at you and you say, oh, what are they waiting? Oh, I don't know what.
And you older young people are amazing. See, the older people responded and the young ones didn't. You are amazing.
The young ones are trying to figure out where you're going with this.
Okay, say to yourself, I am amazing. How's that? Say to yourself, I am amazing. All right, the young ones sitting here. You are amazing, really. We'll tell you about it. All
okay,
right,
let's run through this real quick, because
Yes.
we've already taken 10 minutes of the time. So the first thing about adolescence is the emotional spark. To go their own way, they're just having their own, thoughts and things, and as older, parents, we're kind of just trying to wait till they get through this period of time. We're just hoping that they get to their mid-20s as fast as possible, right? But I want the older people to recognize that the people that are in this age range are the greatest generation that ever lived.
The greatest gift that we have in society.
Say that again.
Yeah. The greatest gift that we have in society.
Listen,
that age group.
Without adolescence, you're going to find out just now, without adolescence, we would not have society. We would still, instead of all of these cars you have here, we would still be running around with drays and donkey carts and buggies and things like that. All right? We'll get to some specifics about that in a few minutes. But the greatest generation that ever lived is because of these four characteristics that we're talking to you about. The essence of adolescence. This emotional spark that you have is crucial. It's what drives you. In this age range, you're not just transitioning from childhood to adulthood. There are physiological and neurological changes taking place in the body, in the mind, that are crucial to us individually as well as to the development of our society. Paulina and I, we have a friend by the name of Daniel Siegel. And Dan is a psychiatrist at the University of California, is LA, right? UCLA? And he has written a book called Brainstorm. And Brainstorm is about adolescence. It's about the changes taking place, transformations taking place in the adolescent body and mind. And what he is showing is that these four characteristics of adolescence are intentionally placed there for this period as the body goes, or particularly as the brain goes through some integration during this period, where we're integrating very many structures from top to bottom in the brain, as well as from left to right. And so in the brain, there's a whole storm of neurotransmitters that are coming on stream. Hormones, that are driving the brain. And probably the main one that we'll talk about in a little while is dopamine, which is the hormone that is a neurotransmitter that drives our reward centers in the brain. And it's one of our feel-good hormones, makes us feel good, all right? And so in this characteristic of emotional spark, this emotional spark that young people have comes from this need to have this sensation of having reward or feeling good, and like I said, it's driven by dopamine. Now listen to this. In adolescence, there is less dopamine than in our older folks. Less dopamine. Listen to this very carefully. Yeah, and when there is less dopamine, they don't have that good feeling. They feel bored. Have you ever heard adolescents talk about being bored? Oh, I'm bored. I don't know what's going on. That's because they have less dopamine. But when they are engaged in activities that causes the release of dopamine, when it's released, it goes higher.
Yeah, about 20 times more than regular adults.
The release of dopamine is higher, and so they have this charge, this
surge of energy.
Yeah, and this great feeling.
Yeah, it's like drugs, really.
Well, yeah. And they will do whatever it takes in order to get that release of dopamine. Mm-hmm. All right? And one of the other characteristics we'll talk about, is thrill seeking. This characteristic, the emotional spark, is the thrill seeking. The reason they're seeking the thrill is to have the dopamine release so they can feel good. All right?
Emotion driven,
Yeah, they're emotion driven. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's emotional spark. The SE, the second one, SE, There it is, social engagement. And social engagement is a powerful drive for adolescents. It's more powerful than familial connections. So we had a son who was an adolescent at the time. And we were living in America, and we were coming home. We're coming here to Jamaica for family reunion. And we came ahead of him, but we spent hundreds of dollars, US dollars, to buy him an airplane ticket so that he could come to the family reunion. But because of this social engagement, wanting to hang out with his peers, with his friends, it was more important to him to hang out with his friends than to come see some old people in a family reunion, hang out with his parents, and be bored out of his mind, right? So he wanted to hang around with his friends, and they could go do stuff that would be thrill-seeking for them and give them that emotional spark.
At this stage, really, friends are more important to them than air. You see what I mean? More important than air. I mean, they want their friends. They connect with their friends. Yes.
So everything that they feel, what does it say there? Stuff that they find meaningful, mutually rewarding relationships. That's what drives adolescence.
Right.
Now, let me say something about this social engagement for those of us who are beyond 26. Because I want you to get all four pieces for yourself. But this particular one, I want to share with you research that's been done around the world to tell you how important this social engagement is for all of us, not just for adolescents. A guy named Dan Buettner he studies older populations, and he found, I think it's 4 or 5 places around the world where the percentage of people who live to be over 100 years old is very high. And one of those places is Sardinia in Italy. Another place is, I think, Icaria in Greece. Another place is the Okinawa in Japan. Okinawa in Japan, was that 3? Another place is the Nicosa Peninsula in Costa Rica in Central America. Those are the 4 geographic locations. And then the 5th one, who knows what the 5th one is? No. That's a Jamaica. The 5th one is Loma Linda, California. Loma Linda, California. A high percentage of people over 100 years old. And when we say people over 100 years old, we're talking about healthy, upright, functional, and vibrant and that sort of thing. This social engagement is a critical thing to keep you healthy throughout your life to ages over 100. All 5 areas that he found around the world where people live to be healthy and over 100 years old, they had very tight bonds with their neighbors, their family. They had close family living with them all around. They had a high spirituality connection with whatever their religion was and so forth, that sort of thing. And for those of us who are members of a church, any church, your attendance and participation in church is part of this social engagement. So one of the ways to keep yourself healthy and living longer is by being involved in church.
I must add to the social engagement characteristic is that, we say that friends are very important to the adolescents at that stage. and friends are the most influential. And one of the reasons is because they do not find acceptance at home.
Mercy.
It's not that they choose to be with their friends. They would actually rather be around their parents if they felt accepted. But because they don't feel accepted by their parents, then they find people who would accept them. And who would accept them the most? Than the people who are their peers, who are going through the same experience. And so what you want to get is that because they are going through the same, physiological and neurological experience, and the dopamine in the system that is released causes them to do some
high risk behaviors. High risk behaviors.
Really, they at this stage, they take chances. They take a lot of risks. I don't know what it is here in Jamaica, but I know in the States, that's the #1 highest mortality rate, that age group. And suicide and all those different things, highest. Because they take risks and they dare each other to do things. And so when your children are going through that stage, we suggest that because you understand what's happening with them, that you bring more compassion and patience and understanding and be open for communication such that they will want to hang around you, because that's where they need to be at that stage, around you. So although we say that their peers are so important to them, if around you they feel safe and accepted, they will hang around you more.
All right, so we're going to rush on to the next two. The next one is novelty seeking. Remember I talked about them getting bored? They're looking for new things, new experiences. In novelty seeking, it says here how we seek out and create new experiences that engage us fully, stimulating our senses, emotions, thinking, and bodies in new and challenging ways. This is what creates the risk-taking. And the dopamine cycle, the up and down of the dopamine cycle, causes them to be more susceptible to addiction at this age. In other words, they try new things that drive up the dopamine, but then when that experience is done, the dopamine level crashes. So they have to have more of that experience, and whatever the experience is, whether it's an ingestion of certain substances, chemicals, or whether it's the experience that they have with their peers. I don't know if it's jumping off of 50-foot cliffs into the ocean, or whatever it is that they do to generate excitement. They do that so that they can have the rush of the dopamine feeling. All right?
And many times when our young people do things that we don't not support, we don't agree with, and we say, didn't you think about this before you did this? Did you think about the consequences? They actually do. They do think of the consequences. But the consequences, the reward, the thrill outweighs the consequences. You really want to get that. So they do think about it. But, my son would be with his friends, and, they do stuff, and I say, didn't you? Why did you do it? We wanted to see if we could get away with it.
Yeah.
That's the thrill, And so then you say, what? You lost your mind? In a sense they have. Because everything is being renewed. Everything is, do you want to talk a little bit more
let me
about
say
that?
something about this losing the mind.
Yeah.
It's called hyper-rationality. Hyper-rationality. So Pollyanna says that you do think about the consequences of your behavior, And that's rational thinking, right? You do think about the consequences. But because the prefrontal lobes are still developing, they have not gotten control of the person as yet. We're still functioning primarily from the central brain, the hippocampus, the amygdala, and regions of the brain like that are driven by the hormones that we've talked about, the dopamine and those sorts of hormones. So that hyper-rationality suggests that, yes, we know there are consequences, but guess what? We're going to get a great feeling if we go ahead and do this.
We're going to have fun.
We're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy this, and we're going to get away with it. So a wonderful son happened to be our son. You don't want to tell the story?
It's being televised.
Oh, it's being televised.
Yes.
Oh, but the truth is the truth, right?
I don't care. I'm not telling.
I mean, they break into a place, since we don't want to give detail. So they break into a place, he and his buddies, to see if they can get away with it. They didn't need anything in there. They had everything they need, but they just wanted to see if they can get in and get out and just
without getting caught.
Without.
Yeah. The thrill.
So that's the thrill. Novelty seeking. All right, so number four is creative exploration. And the reason I said that you're the greatest generation that ever lived is because of this one. It's because of creative exploration. Anything, well, I shouldn't say anything because I don't want to be that general, but most of the things that have moved society forward in terms of development has been brought forward by people from your generation, people that were less than 26 years old, all right? And we're talking about historically for the entire history of the world. For the entire history of the world. We're going to give you some examples, and we're going to ask you to think of other examples as well. But in our recent time, when I say our recent time, within the past 100 years or so, people that you can remember. So today, in our day and age, one of the greatest movers of society is what we call social platforms, right? Social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and those sorts of things. All of those things were brought on stream by people that were less than 25 years old. Every single one of them. And if you go further back, you find that most of the inventions, the innovations in every area of life has come forward by people in this generation. So who has heard of E = MC squared? Give me a name for that. The person. E = MC squared.
Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein, she says. Albert Einstein and people like him, physicists and astronomers and all sorts of people who've created all sorts of things for us. These people, let me tell you, Albert Einstein did all of his major works, special relativity, general relativity, all of that major work he did before he was 25 years old. And after he was 25 years old, he spent the rest of his adult productive life trying to have another breakthrough like the ones that he had when he was 19, 20, 21, 23, and that sort of thing. And he never got another one, right? He spent the rest of his life looking for the unified field theory, and people are still looking for that. But all of Einstein's work was before he was 25, and many of those others that you've heard about, quantum mechanics, if you have a name for that. Quantum mechanics, you've ever heard of that? Those guys, you know, like Maxwell Planck and Niels Bohr and all of those guys, they were less than 25 years old when they created all of that science, right? And when we go to, well, let's talk about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Seventh-day Adventist Church was started by people who were how old? How old was Ellen White when she started? 17 years old when she had her first vision. 17 years old. James White was 21 years old when he started this church. Did you hear me? James White was in his early 20s. Ellen White was a teenager. And yet we have in our church today, we have teenagers and we have people in their early 20s who are adolescents, and I don't even want to say. We don't use their creative exploration. We don't use their novelty seeking. We don't use their social engagement. Yes. We don't use their emotional spark to drive the church forward. Yes. It's people like me who are in their 60s. They put people like me in charge instead of putting people who are in their early 20s and late teens to be running the church. So we were in Kenya. We were in Kenya in September last year. And we were talking to a church of 3,000 members. 3,000 members.
It's actually about 5,000. At least that Sabbath.
Well, 3,000 students.
But students.
3,000 college students in this church.
The church was built on campus on Kenyatta University for the Adventist students. And over 3,000 of them come to church. You know, it's their church.
And the head elder.
And they run that church.
The head elder of the church is a college student in his mid-20s.
It is magnificent.
The head deaconess is a junior in college, in her third year of college. She's the head deaconess.
And they run that church with efficiency. Oh, you should see that.
What I'm trying to tell us older folks is that these folks sitting up here have more energy and talent and creativity than we admit, than we give them credit for. Yes. All right? Yes. So what we're trying to do is to take the young soldiers. In fact, when you study nations and you study war between nations, who do they send to fight wars?
That's right.
Do they send people like me?
And you know,
she's shaking her head. Why they don't send people like me?
You're not agile. You can't move. You can't run. You can't carry heavy shields. That's crazy.
She's talking bad about me. She says I can't run. Look, I'm running. I'm agile. I can bend and then so forth.
So the thing is, I remember when I was growing up in the church, it was the young people who were up front. It was the young people who were leading out in the church. And the church exploded at that time. Now we're having issues in our churches because we don't have enough young people. We are losing our young people. I don't know how it is here in Jamaica, but I know in the States, in North America, we are losing our young people. And that's one of the reasons is because we are not giving them opportunity to lead or to participate. They don't find relevance in what it is that we do in the church. They don't find meaning. They don't feel that this is a place where they can be called their home church. And the reality is, if we got them involved, they would do much more than we do. When you look at evangelistic series that you want to do for your church, you know, the pastor relies on you to go get your friends and neighbors and all these people and bring them here. And that's what he relies on, because he can't do it. He's expecting you. But we as adults have all kind of hang-ups. We have all kind of fears and issues that prevent us from going to the next door neighbor or to our co-worker or anybody who's walking down the street in the first place to invite them to come. Let the young people loose. You see how they fill up this church. I remember we were in a church in New York, and, Baldwin empowered the young people, and they created their groups, the youth association, and they had all kinds of programs. And one of the programs was outreach. They go to different communities. So one time they planned to have a train ministry. And they planned that train ministry for months. And they got T-shirts and jeans. They put the name of the church and their name on the T-shirt. I remember it was purple T-shirt. And the day came when they were going, the afternoon, to train ministry, which was to go in the train and talk to people, give out booklets and flyers, share their experiences with Jesus. They don't have a problem telling somebody what Jesus did for them. We do as adults, not the young people. And so they got ready, had their jeans on and their T-shirt, all excited, all their supplies ready. And some well-meaning sister comes to them and say, "You're not going to leave this church and go out in the street looking like this, representing us. With jeans on, with T-shirt on the Sabbath day. You're bringing shame to the church, and you have the name of the church on your T-shirt so they will recognize us." That child started to cry, and all those who were around her, and they were discouraged. They didn't want to go anymore until someone came and found him and said, the young people don't want to go out anymore. Of course, we're shocked because we wish we could have gone with them. They were so excited. So he comes in the church, and he brings all the young people. He says, "Everybody, all the young people come here. All the adults, all the adults." He wants everybody, because, they stay for lunch, and everybody, it was downstairs in the lunchroom. He had everybody come out. And he asked everybody to surround these young people, put them in the middle, and had everybody surround the young people, and said, "These young people are going to represent us in the trains in the city of New York, and they are going to speak for Jesus. They are God's representative." And he, just encouraged them and empowered them. And when he finished, prayed with them, and he asked everybody to hug the kids and, etc. And the children left empowered. When they came back that night, we had balls of fire in that church. They had so many great testimonies. Young people. But you see how one person could have killed that project. Yeah, that's what we do. We got all kind of hang-ups and issues, and we let those things get in the way, and we do that to our young people who are willing to do anything for Jesus. And so really what we're saying is that make use of the young people. They have what it takes. You can trust them. Just be around them and accept them and support them during their growth, development, and give them the support they need, and you'll be amazed what it is that they will realize in the church.
Amen. Our job is to channel all of that energy in the right way, to support, to counsel. So we are consultants, and we are the ones who should step out of the way and let them lead the charge for the next, thank you, for the next period of the church. So, essence of adolescence. This is the essence of adolescence, of living well during adolescence and during the adult years. Emotional spark, social engagement, novelty seeking, and creative exploration.
And that makes up essence, the essence
That's
word.
the essence. You get it? So this is the reason why you are the greatest generation that has ever lived. The adolescents are always the greatest generation that has ever lived because of these four characteristics that we've just talked about. Because that last one, creative exploration, you design and invent everything that we need to move society forward. So you are it. You are the it. You are the it. When Jesus had his disciples, Peter was probably an older fellow. But a lot of the other disciples were probably adolescents. In other words, less than 25. Like John, we know definitely was probably a late teenager when Jesus picked him as one of his disciples, and so was his brother. So we have had a long history of having young people generate positive growth and positive movement. And so we've gone now, we've got about 15 minutes left. So we have about, I think, 15 minutes, 6:45? Okay, so we have half an hour. So what we've shared with you, these 4 elements of the essence of adolescence, we want it to be also the 4 essence of adulthood. Because we know that if you as adults, those who are beyond the 26 years old, yeah, beyond 35, if you keep these 4 things in your life, you, as I said earlier this morning when I was advertising it, you will stay young forever. Amen? If you want to maintain that youthful spark that you once had, all you have to do is intentionally incorporate emotional spark, social engagement, novelty seeking. And when I say novelty seeking, especially for those of you who are getting older, like beyond 65, beyond 70, novelty seeking is required for you. Seeking out new experiences. I suggest to those of you who are older, learn something new.
Learn languages.
Play
an instrument.
Learn to play the piano.
Yes.
Learn gardening if you have never been a gardener.
Play mind games. Those games on the
yeah. Novelty seeking. Take on novelty seeking. And of course, we talked about social engagement. Even when you're older, you can start to make new friends. These folks up here don't have any problems making new friends.
They can teach
They
you,
make
actually.
new friends like this.
Yes.
Just like this. But it's important for you as older folks to make new friends as well. It will help keep you young. Amen?
Amen.
It will help keep you young.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We've now said a lot, and the floor is yours.
Yes.
All right, the floor is yours. We would like to hear from you. It does not have to be a question. It may be a comment. It may be something that you'd like to share. So this is your opportunity.
All right, how can we release dopamine in a healthy way?